Afternoon, back again. Just out here with the chickies. Just going to give them a mid-afternoon treat just before I go and walk the dogs who are over there in the background. Now, me and Sarah have been discussing what would be useful to know if you'd never had chickens before, and that's what this video is going to be about. 5 things that we think would be useful for a beginner. 5 things that we would have found useful to know prior to getting chickens, and we hope that these 5 things actually help you to make a decision on a range of different things. So let's get into it. So first and foremost on our list is breed type. Now we went for Australorps, primarily because they are a robust heritage breed, capable of dealing with cold weather and warm weather, and seeing as the conditions we keep on getting are very mixed, I thought that would do us quite well. They're also a very friendly bird, very similar to an Orpington in characteristics and size, and I found them to be very, very friendly, as you can see. Hello, Chucks. Although Rufus, our rooster, can be a bit temperamental in terms of how he interacts with people. So, as with any rooster, it's something you've got to be aware of. They can be funny little characters, and especially around children, you've got to be careful. Anyway, in terms of breed, so for us this seemed the most logical breed for what we wanted. So we wanted a dual purpose bird. Not that we really wanted them primarily for meat, it was mainly for eggs, but we wanted that possibility if the need arose. The problem that we've found is that they are not easy to come by. So other than hatching eggs and raising them yourself, the availability of young birds to add to your flock is limited, particularly where we are in the country. I've really struggled to find any that are available or within easy reach. There's a lot down south, we're in the Midlands, very few available. And that is something that you need to take into consideration when you are looking into getting chickens. Do you want a speciality breed, a heritage breed, that may have poor availability, or do you want to go for a hybrid bird that they're pretty available anywhere? There's quite a few breeders around us that we could get some hybrids to add to this. They just don't have the robustness of the heritage breed. They don't have the longevity in terms of the laying, and for me I wanted something a little bit more special. So I've created the limitation, but it's something to be aware of. If you're going for a heritage breed, you need to look into what is really available. Things like Orpingtons or Sussex, light Sussex, they seem to be quite popular. Cream leg bars, they seem to be quite popular, and there seems to be a lot more of them available if you look on the various sites. Black Australorps, not so much. Be aware that the availability of birds can be limited. The second thing to be aware of is what type of coop do you want your chickies to be in. And by that I mean you really need to consider what you want to do with your chickies and how you want them to live on your land, whether that's a back garden, whether that's a farm, whether that's a field, whatever it is. You need to take into consideration how you are going to move them around, or whether they're going to be static. Those sort of things need thinking about right at the start. Now we currently have 4 different types of coops on the go. We have a static coop in our back garden in which the lady, our Peking Bantams, live, and they have free reign, free access to the entirety of our back garden, our main garden. We also have this coop, which I'm sat next to right now, which was our original coop, and we're now using this one as our nursery coop. as you'll have seen, we've got Hannibal in there, one of our Peking Bantams, who recently went broody, and we managed to put 6 Australorp eggs underneath her, and we've now got some chicks. So she's looking after them in here until we can move her to our next biggest coop. So this is a small one, but it can be lifted up. So we have a platform, this one, behind, which makes it a mobile coop, and that will give these a little bit more space once they've got a couple of weeks on them. So we'll lift this back up on top of the other one, and then we'll be able to move them around for a few weeks until they get a little bit bigger, and then we'll move them over into our second mobile coop, which is this one over here. Which is a much larger coop than this one, and we'll be able to accommodate the size of these chickens once they get to a couple of months old. So we've had 7 chickens in that one previously, Australorp sized chickens, and they've been accommodated in that no problem. It is a lot heavier though, and then once they've done in that one, we'll be moving the hens or the pullets up into the caravan, which is our main coop now. That's our main static coop, and that is just a converted old caravan that we had on site, and we've fitted it out on the inside with perches and nest boxes, and it works perfectly for what we need, and it's a very good space for the chickens at this time of year. But there are many options that you have for chickens. If you're going for something like broilers, you might want to do a chicken tractor where they don't really have a coop as such, where they don't have the nest boxes or any of this sort of structure. It's literally a flat box basically that's netted with some shelter covering, basically to stop predators getting in, but other than that the chickens will be on the ground feeding most of the time, and you will move them every day. That works perfectly for broilers, and probably what we would do in this scenario if that's what we were after. As we are after egg production, our coops are based more around comfort and space, and that's what we're aiming for. That's sort of what our coops are built for, particularly the caravan now. That gives them a lot of space in there. It gives us a lot more space to put more chickens in there. We've currently got 6. We're hoping to get up to about 10 in that one comfortably, probably with room to spare. The other coop that we've got over here, that can fit maximum 8 in there really comfortably. This one can probably fit about 5, maybe 6 Peking Bantams, only about 2 Australorps in this. It is a lot smaller. But you really need to think about the size of the coop, the number of chickens that you're going to have, whether your flock is going to increase in size. All of those things I would suggest look into right at the beginning, and if you can afford it, or if you can build it, go for something slightly bigger than what you want initially, because that will save you a lot of time in the long run. To some extent, what we have done is we've had to keep on adapting our stuff, and that's led to us having these multiple things. Worked out well in the long run, but if we weren't doing this with trying to raise extra chickens, then this would have been a waste of effort to some extent. If we'd have just stuck with our original 6 or 7 birds, then we wouldn't have these multiple coops. Would have been a waste of time. Similarly, if you're going for broilers, there's no point going to the trouble of building something like one of these coops. It's excessive for what you will need and for the time that they will spend in there, which will be a couple of weeks as opposed to permanently. So that is number 2, coops. So number 3 is equipment, and I'll state this right at the start. It will evolve as you go through. You are not going to get all the right kit right at the start unless you're incredibly lucky. So in terms of equipment, as I've already said, you are highly unlikely to get the right stuff first time around, and we have adapted our thinking and the items that we use as we've gone along. We've been keeping chickens now for, this is our 4th year of keeping chickens. Started off with Peking Bantams, moved up to the Australorps, and with each iteration something has cropped up that's changed the way that we do things. We started off with Peking Bantams with these little 1 litre feeders. Worked perfectly well for inside the static coop that they had, and the little sheltered area, enclosed area, absolutely spot on. We could also cover that enclosure so it didn't get absolutely drenched. We then moved on to these 2 litre feeders, and they worked up to a point. Through the summer months, not a problem at all. Winter months, what we were finding was inside these little cells, water was getting into those and basically drenching the feed, and it was just wicking up through all of the feed, so you could lose 2 litres worth of chicken feed just through the water wicking through it, and it just turned into porridge, which then once it dried out turned to concrete, and the chickies just would not touch it. So that, we weren't happy with that. That's something that's really annoyed us. Similarly, the water containers, very similar to these, hold about 2 litres. With the size of the Australorps that we've got, even with only 6 birds, what we've found is that they go through that water really quick. If you're here all of the time, you've got good access to them, that's not too much of a problem. If, let's say, me and Sarah are both out at work, it's not always the easiest thing to do to make sure that this is filled up every single day. You could do with a little bit of leeway, which is why we have gone for our current bits of kit. So we have gone for a hopper feeder with an adapter on the bottom, which basically creates a little tray that captures the feed. That has been working absolutely fantastically, a little bit too good in certain circumstances. And over in the distance, which I'll show you now, we have our 5 litre water container, and that is absolutely spot on. That gives me about 3 days worth of water in there without me needing to top it up, unless one of the chickies knock it over, which is always a possibility. But overall, that is just enough water. I know that they're getting fresh water on a very, very frequent basis, and then I've got enough time that I can get on with other stuff and then come and top this up. The feeder that holds a 20 kilogram bag of food. I am not putting that in, simply because we have a lot of jackdaws around here and they've figured out how to access this. So I'm reluctant to do that, and what I tend to do is I'll put about a kilogram of food in there, and I'll just keep on opening the lid and scooping it down inside, which I'll show you now. And that limits how much is wasted on jackdaws, blackbirds, crows, whatever else that come in and jump up and feed at that. So if we were going away for a number of days, then I would fill that halfway, and that would do them no problem. So that gives us a bit of freedom to go away for a couple of days. So in terms of feeders, we also have, for the lay team, a feeder that has a canopy over the top, which has worked brilliantly for wet conditions. And we've got that primarily because it's just set out in the garden. It's not in one of our coops, it's not sheltered, it's not covered, and it was getting absolutely obliterated by the amount of rain that we've had over the last 8 and 9 months. So I decided to upgrade and go for something that has this little canopy over the top, and it's worked absolutely fantastic. The only problem is it's a little bit too small for using with the Australorps. They would go down it way too quickly. I'd be feeding them probably twice a day. Other than that, we've had trays for our little chicks. Now currently they're using a 2 litre feeder in that little coop. That works perfectly for them, and also Hannibal can access that quite easily. When we've used incubators and had a brooder, we've used a feeder tray which I've never really liked that much. I think the feed containers that we're using currently work much better. That's what you've got to consider with regards to equipment. There's always something new. Number 4 is egg production and whether it's worth it. Now, something that we didn't realise when we first got chickies is how frequently they can go broody, depending on the breed. Now, we have Peking Bantams and we have Australorps, both of which can and do go broody. That can have a negative impact on the rest of the flock, depending on the size of the flock that we've got. And with our birds, we've got 5 laying hens, main laying hens, and what we've found is they always have a favourite nest and they all want to lay in that nest. Now, if one goes broody and she dominates that nest, which we've got currently, you will not get any eggs out of the birds. They will stop laying. Or, as has also happened this year, you could end up with them laying somewhere that you don't want them to lay, which in our case was underneath the caravan, where we didn't even notice until probably about 2 weeks in. So we currently have a broody hen in here. There she is over the back. Phyllis, you're being cheeky again. Now, if I'm really lucky, she'll be laid on 1 egg from earlier today. I'll go and collect that in a minute and take that in, but I really don't want her to be broody. That has, over the last 2 years, really impacted on the amount of eggs that we have got, probably more so than anything else, because with so many hens, with them being a particularly broody type, same with the Peking Bantams, we basically get 1 hen who goes broody, we break her of that, and we can almost guarantee that we'll have another one within 2 weeks' time. So you might just be starting to pick up on egg production again, and then all of a sudden no more eggs because another one's gone broody. Happens particularly during warm weather. Now, we have just had a relatively warm June. I won't say it was scorching or anything like that, but compared to what it has been over the last 8 months, it was relatively warm. That has triggered 2 of our birds to go broody in that month. So literally, like within 2 weeks of each other, they've gone broody. We've got 3 of our Peking Bantams have gone broody in that same time frame. So currently we are getting no eggs at all from the Pekings, whereas we've been getting on average 3 out of these still. Yesterday we got 2, and I suspect today we might get 1, maybe 2 if we're lucky. But that is a major problem. The other thing is temperature. If it gets too hot and they've not gone broody, there's a good chance that they'll still stop laying because it's too warm. Equally, over winter, egg production will decline massively. We were getting maybe 1 egg a day over winter, and it was a particularly wet and soggy winter. Yeah, the time that you could really do with the eggs was the time that you just weren't getting any. So it's important to, if you can, store the eggs. Something like egg glassing, which we will do a video on, but that is very important because that could actually provide you with a good supply of fresh eggs over winter. With regards to how cheap it is, well, considering the amount of food, feed, forage, fencing, scratch, everything else that we give to the chickies, the amount we put into them, no, it's not worth the cost of the eggs. Don't save you any money in the long run. Are they good quality? Yes, very much so. These are some of the nicest tasting eggs I've ever had, and the colour of them is just amazing. You would not get anything like that in the shop. Is your interaction with the chickens and the egg production worth it? I would say so, yes. It really comes down to what effort you're prepared to put in to get those rewards. Egg production can be hit and miss. Number 5 is commitment. Chickies may seem easy to look after and relatively easy to manage. They are and they aren't, as you would expect. You can be as involved with the chickies as you want to be. In our case, we spend a lot of time looking after them, checking up on them, just to make sure nothing's happened, the fox hasn't taken them, one of them's not lame, we're still getting the eggs, the feed's alright, the water's alright. It ends up being quite a commitment in the long run. We're normally up quite early, works out very well for the chickies. We can be out here at 6 o'clock on a morning, checking up on the chickies, letting them out of the coop so they can get out and have their breakfast. That's a commitment in itself though. Unless you have a timed entrance on your coop, depending on what coop you have, back to point 2, you will need to come out every morning and let these birds out. Into the summer, you are talking early mornings because it can potentially get quite hot in their coop. Again, if the coops are quite small and they're in full sun, they will heat up very fast. If you're not opening them up until 8-9 o'clock, it could be quite warm in the summer. Equally, when it comes to putting them away on a night, the time that these birds want to go to bed, we're now in July, you're looking at 9:30, so don't be thinking you'll get an early night or you can forget about them. Unless you're able to round them up and put them to bed directly, they could be out until 9:30, 10 o'clock, depending on their temperament. With ours, generally, you're talking between 9 and 9:30 when they're going to bed at this time of year, so basically mid-year. Through the winter months, you'll be looking at sort of 3:30 sort of thing as the nights are drawing in. But therein lies another problem. You will be going out in sun, rain, wind, snow, whatever else to deal with your chickies. So if this is just something that you want to do in your back garden, just be aware that you have these things to do. You will need to take them into consideration. The other thing to think is you won't be able to go away on holiday in the same manner that you might have been able to do previously. This isn't the same sort of commitment as having cows or sheep or goats. It's nowhere near as complicated in that respect. The chances are you may be able to find a neighbour who will come around and let your chickies out and do that for 2 weeks, but that is an ask for a neighbour, that is an ask for a family member, etc, etc. So it's something you need to take into consideration. You can't just leave them to their own devices unless you aren't that worried of the fox taking them or them running out of water or whatever else. We are quite concerned that that sort of thing would happen. Commitment also includes making sure their feed is topped up every day, or they've got enough feed for a couple of days. Making sure their water is fresh or topped up, particularly midsummer or winter, it could be frozen. You're going out to check those sort of things. So don't think that these are just an easy thing to look after. There are commitments, there are things that you will need to do, and you just can't get away from it. So the other thing is welfare. We're constantly checking on the chickies. We have one that's not feeling too good at the moment, and we're treating her as we speak. We've currently got one lot of chicks which are just under a week old. We've got another lot of eggs which are under one of our other Peking bantams, which hopefully we'll get in another 3 weeks time. They'll hatch out, we'll have some more chicks then. You're constantly watching to make sure everything's working. It also means we've got interactions between our different groups of birds, and there's quite a lot of juggling to do in terms of that. It has not been as easy an experience as even we imagined, so just be warned, commitment is a major thing. Right, with that, I think I'll sign off for now. I think I've bored you enough with things about chickies. We will do a follow-up to this with some other things that could be pertinent to you owning or getting into owning chickens. I hope you found that interesting. I hope it's been useful, and I hope it's not put you off. With that, we'll see you next time.